Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hi, Barbara.
Oh, hi, Glenn.
Hello. Hi, Glenn. Hello, welcome everybody to our webinar. I see that people just entering the main room, so maybe we can wait a minute. And before we start, I would like to share a few information regarding the techniques. This webinar will be recorded. So if you do not wish to be on the video, you can turn your camera off. And please keep your microphones muted during the presentations unless the meeting host or the panel moderator asks you otherwise. Okay, I see that people enter the room one after the other. So maybe we can wait. Just hi. Hi, Robert.
Hi, hello. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you. Hello.
Idel, I think you need to unmute.
Oops, yes, thank you. Maybe we wait another minute and then we can start. And in the meantime, for those who have entered the room a bit later, I have shared already some technical information. This webinar will be recorded, so please, if you do not wish to be on the video, turn your camera off. And also keep your microphones muted during the presentations unless the meeting host or the panel moderator asks you otherwise. So we really hope that in the end we will have a very nice discussion with you, but until the end, please keep the mics turned off. Okay, so I see that there are quite a lot of people here with us today, and I'm sure that other people will enter the room also later, but we would like to be on schedule. So I would like to ask Bertalan Péter Farkas, our head of unit, to say a few words and greet the participants on behalf of us. Thank you. I hand over.
Thank you, Adele. Is it okay, my voice? Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, our lecturers, panelists, our dear guests from all over Europe and beyond, I warmly welcome you to this wonderful afternoon. I am Bertalan Péter Farkas, the head of the Knowledge Center of Tempus Public Foundation in Hungary. This year, the 26-year-old Tempus Public Foundation, which is one of the core institutions for bringing European values and messages in education and training into the country, together with 6 other excellent European partners, has decided in 2018 to embark on a long journey together to learn to do more about inclusive education, social inclusion, and tackling school disadvantages. This journey consisted of many small steps that came together into a 40-month project called Stairs. Let me take only 3 important messages about Stairs. Firstly, I am very proud to have worked together in a very exceptional and great partnership with our Irish, Portuguese, Slovenian, Croatian, and Czech colleagues. Thank you all of you for your hard work, the flawless cooperation, and your meaningful job. I would definitely like to mention and thank the dozens of excellent experts from universities, research institutes, and schools with whom we have been able to work together. We owe a great deal to them, and I trust that their expert work will be reflected in the project results, and they will be happy to pass on these results, use them in their daily work, thus contributing to the professional development and achieving common success in the field of social inclusion. Secondly, also allow me to thank my colleagues. The Knowledge Center has been coordinating international policy projects for more than 10 years, and now we are very proud of these projects and the results. Stairs is a common child of our last 40 months that we have raised together. For a year from the beginning of 2019, Marianna Such was the project manager. Thanks to her for laying the foundations and building the flawless partnership, and also for participating in designing of several project documentation and professional publications in Stairs. Adel Chernovitz took over the project in 2020, and 3 months later, a pandemic broke out, as you know, putting unprecedented professional and management challenges into the project implementation. But with her experience and professionalism, we could do a great change management until nowadays. As an extra, the implementation of the project was assisted throughout Emőke Horváth, with whom our dissemination activities and management cooperation also worked more smoothly. It is also a great place to thank the dozens of our financial, communication, and legal staff who have helped us over the 3.5 years. Thank you, all of you. Finally, this month, May 2022, is the last month of the project. So the time has come for the professional results, outputs, the completed project documents to finally come to light and reach teachers, experts, policymakers, and decision makers. We hope that the learning process that we have experienced together during the Stairs project can help you move forward with more effective and successful tools for social inclusion in schools and beyond. Now we are here to get acquainted with these outputs and results. I wish you much success, strength, and courage using them in the future, and I wish you now a great webinar for today. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Thank you for your words. And I am really glad that you mentioned my colleague Marianna. She has been a great support for me all the time. And at this time, I also asked her to support me because we would like to invite you to a warm-up activity. And we prepared with Mentimeter a quick interactive activity. And I asked Marianna to help me with it. So I would like to hand over to her, and she will explain you what we are going to do. And in the meantime, I'm going to share the screen.
Okay, thank you, Adele. Thanks and welcome everyone. It's really a big pleasure for all of us, as everyone mentioned already, that we are here. And we are always happy to know where exactly we are from and also share it with each other. So not only for us to know, but for the rest of you, it is an added value to see where other people's come from. So we created a Menti, and we would like to ask you to go to www.menti.com. Use any kind of device. It can be a separate browser only, or it can be your smartphone, and use the code that you can see here. And I think Emőke has also shared it in the chat. It's 24 76 75 42. And the first slide, not this one, but the next one, will be about the country and the institution or organization that you represent here. So we would like to ask all of you just to type in the country where you are from and the institution and organization you represent. And let's see who are here. Slovenian National Agency. Okay, Hungary Tempus Public Foundation. Varaždin country our partner. Excellent. Croatia, yes. Educational Research Institution, that's from Slovenia too. It's our partner. Finland, great, I can see it. What else do we see? Yes, Portugal, the university, our partner. What about the participants? I can see all of our partners now. I think maybe not the Czech one, I cannot see. Ireland, yes, Ireland, not Iceland. I first thought it's Iceland. Okay. Portugal, a lot of people from Portugal, Finland, Hungary, Bulgaria. Okay, 20 people already have entered. How, actually, I don't know. Can you help me? How many people are here? So how long should I wait?
41.
Okay, thank you. 41. Okay. Okay, we have Hungarian participants. I can see the Czech participants, Romania. I haven't seen it already. Okay. Okay, 25. Maybe a few seconds more and then we can get to the next question, because there are always some people who cannot, for some reason, I don't know why it happens, but sometimes Menti doesn't work for everyone. So it's not a problem. It's just to show us that we are from different countries. I wanted to make it visible that even from Brazil, there are some participants here, but I cannot see Brazil here. Can you? No. Anyway, so there are a lot of people who represent their own country and institution here. Let's move to the next slide, Odile. Thank you. What is your position at your institution or organization? We have collected a few options: school teachers, school principal or assistant principal, other school administrators, counselors, etc., university teachers, student, educational developer, researcher, policy expert, policymaker, project coordinator, maybe having projects in inclusion, and any other, of course, which we didn't think of. Thank you. I can see that you have started to put your dots wherever they should go. Okay, 16, 17. A lot of project coordinators are here. What about the school teachers and school principals? I could see some registrations from there too. Project coordinators, researchers. Okay. All right, are there more coming? Yes, the school teacher. I always wonder what other is in this case. Maybe we will ask it later. Okay, although there are 41 people, I hope everyone who wanted to add their answer could. So let's move on to the last slide. What does inclusive education mean to you? This seminar or this webinar is about inclusive education. So we thought it could be a good thought-provoking question. Of course, you don't have to go into very deep, just one sentence. Eliminating barriers, excellent, thank you. Someone took the initiative and started. Okay, so anything that comes to your mind in connection with your own projects, what you experienced throughout the road you are taking. Equal opportunities, right to education, it's a must, okay? All for all in many ways. It is key to leave no one behind, providing equal opportunities. Roma children are equal to all. equity, democracy, and social justice, a feeling to being in a group, equal education opportunities for all, okay, same opportunities for everyone, involvement of all groups in education and empowerment of vulnerable groups. Equality, equal education, right to education, okay. Openness, excellent. Okay, I think I don't see more coming. Maybe one more. No. Okay. Thank you very much. Adele, I give it back to you because we just wanted to warm you up a bit and see who are here. Thank you for participating and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Marianne. It was very interesting to see where people are from, what is their position and what they think about inclusion. And this is how I would like to continue. Before I start with my presentation, I would like to tell you a few words about the program of the webinar. In the first part, we will have the presentations about the main results of the Stairs project. And after the coffee break, in the second part, we will have a panel. And we have invited other projects in the field of inclusive education. And we really hope that we will have a very nice discussion. And we also would like to invite the webinar participants to join the conversation later and share their thoughts. So now I would like to start my presentation. Just a moment. Yes. I share my screen. Okay. I hope to make it bigger. Well, I could do it when we tested it, but it's not going away now. Just a moment. Maybe I start again. Oh, unbelievable.
Can I help?
Yes,
Try
please.
to share different screen.
Okay. So let's try this one. No, you can't see it now. Sorry, that wasn't my plan.
It's okay that way.
Okay.
Adele, don't you want me to share it?
Yes, please. I don't know why it's not moving away from, so maybe I give it a last try and, okay, you did it. Okay, thank you. So.
Is it good?
Good. Okay, so let's move to the, yes, so imagine a world in which everybody can go to school and learn. Education was recognized as a human right in 1948. And since that time, it was more specified what governments must do to prevent exclusion from education. But is it a reality for all? Please click. Really, everybody can participate in education. But how can we include all learners in education? international organizations such as UNESCO, or the European Union, or the OECD, and also the World Bank support and promote inclusive education. So it is on one hand a challenge to promote inclusive education, but also a global agenda. And we can really do a lot at the individual, institutional, local, and national levels. The concept of inclusion is accepted worldwide at the policy level, but inclusion in education is a process with many steps to take. And this can be, for example, providing equality of opportunities for all learners, or we can promote inclusive education in the society, and we can raise awareness of its benefits. And we also have to widen the understanding of inclusive education, and we have to think of the all means all concept, so that so that we include all children. Children may have disabilities, they may be special educational needs, they may be poor, they may be migrants, or they are even just maybe new in the school. And we really have to put the learner at the center. And stakeholders in and around the school play an important role in the development of children's well-being. And they have to feel that they belong somewhere and that they are respected and valued so that they can flourish. Yes. What is inclusion? Oh, what happened here? Maybe let's try to go back again. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so my question here is, what is inclusion? And we have asked you in the beginning what you think, what means inclusion to you, and it seems that everybody has his or her own definition. And and you know what, you are all right, because it's not easy to define inclusion. It's not only a result, it's also an experience, a process, and most importantly, it's a fundamental value. Yes, we can go further. But how can we promote inclusion in education? And even if there are good initiatives, there are good projects, and there is good intention, inclusive education cannot happen sometimes because there are obstacles in the implementation. And there is often a gap between policies and classroom practice, and we have to be aware of that. But how can we solve this? So we can learn from others, we can learn from peers, we can collect and study the good practices, and we can try to adapt good practices. We can foster cooperation of stakeholders, and it is very important also to manage a mindset change, because the majority of change processes fail because of stakeholder resistance. Okay. I think we bared all these in our minds while carrying out our project. And now I would like to tell you what we have achieved in our Stairs project. The long title is Stakeholders Together Adapting Ideas to Readjust Local Systems to Promote Inclusive Education. This is an Erasmus Key Activity 3, and it started on the 31st of January 2019, and it will phase out very soon by the end of this month, as Betsy has already mentioned. We can go. So, what were the aims of the project? It was to support national, regional, and local stakeholders to improve their competencies to foster social inclusion in education, to promote social inclusion through educational good practices, to support the development of the adaptation process and support the effective knowledge sharing across Europe, and to develop European policy recommendations. Please meet the partnership. And Betsy already said a few kind words about the partnership, and I also would like to highlight that this is a wonderful partnership, and this is really very strong collaboration, and all the partners are very cooperative and really resilient. So we We had to change our plans many times because of COVID, but we managed everything. And I'm so thankful that I could be part of such a good partnership. So let me go through quickly the names. So we have the Mary Immaculate College from Limerick, Ireland. We have Lusophone University of Humanities and Technologies from Lisbon, Portugal. We have the Center for Applied Research and Continuing Education from Písek, Czech Republic. We have Varaždinkanti from Croatia. We have two institutions from Slovenia, both from Ljubljana. The first one is the Educational Research Institute, and the other one is the Institute of the Republic of Slovenia for Vocational Education and Training, and the Tempus Public Foundation from Hungary. Tempus is the consortium leader, so we are the coordinator of the project. Yes, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what is happening.
Okay, it will.
I'm trying to. I don't know why. Can you see it now?
Yes, but please go back.
But why is it doing this?
I don't know. It will, maybe the file size is too large. I don't know. So try to have it. Okay, so we had 3 main phases in our project, and that covered all 3 years we had for the project. In the first part, we had the research and analysis phase. In this part, we have identified the national challenges of the so-called learning countries, because we had different roles in the project. So not every country had the same role. On one hand, there were the learning countries, Czech Republic, Hungary, Croatia, and Slovenia. And on the other hand, there were the sharing countries, Ireland and Portugal. And the learning countries identified the national challenges. They tried to find out what they would like to learn, what they need in order to address inclusive education in their countries. And on the other hand, we had Ireland and Portugal who collected good practices, and they try to find really the institutions and the good initiatives that could fit the needs of the learning countries. The second phase was the mutual learning phase, in which we prepared us for the study visits, we planned the study visits, and it was really a long planning phase because we had COVID just, I think, a week before we wanted to travel to Portugal, to Ireland and later Portugal. And we really had to change plans because we couldn't travel. We wanted to go on site and interview people and see with our own eyes what they have achieved, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. So we moved all activities to the online space, and we implemented study visits online. But I think it was a great success and really could achieve good quality results in the study visits. So I can recommend you to implement study visits also online if there is no other way. And in the last part of the other project, we try to summarize the lessons learned, and we have created a lot of outputs that can help to adapt good practices. And you will hear about these results and outputs later, a bit more detailed from my colleagues from the partnership. Okay, we can move to the next slide. In the next 2 slides, you will see the links of the good practices that have been collected. The first slide is for the Irish good practices. The second one is for the Portuguese. Yes, Marianne, you can move on. I'm not going to tell you details about the good practices because unfortunately we do not have the time for this, but you can get issues will be uploaded to our website, and you can read the full case studies of the good practices, and we can move to the next one. Thank you. However, there are some common characteristics of the good practices that I would like to highlight. Maybe you remember Joaquim from Portugal. He was in the video that we recommended you to watch as pre-webinar activity, and I'm not sure that you had the chance to watch it, but I hope that some of you have met him in the video. So Joaquim is a Portuguese pupil who is Roma, but he likes to go to school because he feels accepted. And if he grows up, he would like to be someone. And in my understanding, this means that he would like to be someone who is valued and respected and who has a place in the society. And he receives support in the school. And I think this is really the core idea of all the good practices that we have collected, that they would like to support the learner. And please click for me. Yes, some other common characteristics are that all the good practices are learner-centered, and there is personalized learning planning, and they use a lot of differentiated teaching methodologies in the classroom practice. The pedagogical approach is always, in all cases, holistic. So attention is paid to shaping pupils' personal, practical, emotional, and social skills, so that children can participate in a wide range of activities. Yeah. Next.
I'm trying. I don't know why.
Yeah, schools are also cultural and community centers, so they offer a lot of extracurricular activities. They offer even courses for parents, and they offer any kind of club and spare time activities too. And schools are also learning organizations. This means that they regularly share their knowledge and experience in the field. Yes. Okay, and it is very important that cooperation with families was really a key element, because strong links between home and school is key to address educational inequality or disadvantage. Yes. Okay, now a few words about the outputs of the STAIRS project. As I already mentioned, in the first phase, we had some research and analysis, and in that phase, Czech Republic, Hungary, Croatia, and Slovenia created their country reports, and these reports are about how they have addressed and promoted inclusive education in their countries and what are their learning needs. And on the other hand, we have the good practices that have been collected. The next three outputs are related more to support the adaptation phase. So after the learning countries have been aware of their learning needs and they studied the good practices, they try to come up with a national adaptation plan. And these national adaptation plans exist in the national languages, but there is, in any case, an English summary. We have our change management toolkit. You will hear about this later, a bit more detailed. This is help to implement the adaptation process. And we also have a European adaptation guidelines in which we try to summarize all the lessons we have learned, all the experiences, and therefore we have formulated these in kind of a guidelines so that other countries in Europe or even across the globe can use it if they want to adapt a good practice. Yes, and last but not least, I would like to draw your attention to a great result, which is, excuse me, Agnes Tanka, could you please switch your microphone off? Thank you. Yes, and the MOOC, which is still in progress, and it requires a lot of fine-tuning, but I'm very proud of that result because it's really a good cooperation of partners. It has 7 modules, and I'm not going to go into very detail because you will be able to hear about this more detailed a bit later, but it has 7 modules, and we have this picture, we have this pictorial analogy of the Ferris wheel. And we thought that this would cover the features that we as project members wish to see in the Stairs Mooc. And the Ferris wheel is slow moving and it has multiple entrance and exit points. And as learning does not happen in a linear way, learners can take what is appropriate for them, what is appropriate for their needs, and they can get back again and they can progress further. Next slide, please. This is what you can find in a MOOC. You just click one by one. Yes, there are pages with explanations, there are interactive activities, and there are very nice videos explaining or summarizing the modules. Yes, and a typical module comprises of content pages, assignments, quizzes, and discussions. And I think that was all I wanted to tell you about the Stairs project. And if you want to learn to do more, please visit our website and you will find all the material that I have mentioned. There are a lot of documents that have been already uploaded, but I think that in June or July, we can really upload everything. But I really recommend you to browse the website and find the information that's appropriate for you. Thank you for your kind attention. And I'm sorry for this technical problem. I don't know what happened. It happens sometimes. Okay. So now I would like to give the floor to our partners, our project partners, and you will hear some very nice presentations. We will have 3 presentations, first about the MOOC, then from Angela Kenny, and after that, the change management from Ana Paula Silva, and last but not least, you will hear about the European Adaptation Guidelines from Igor Peras. And I think that now I hand over to Angie. And Angie,
Okay.
if you are ready.
Yes, I'll just share my
forward.
screen.
Yes, thank you.
Can you see that, Adele? Great.
Yes,
okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, you're very welcome. And my name is Angela Kenny from Mary Immaculate College in Limerick. And I was one of the coordinators of the MOOC. So I want you just to take you through the design of it and the conceptualization of it as well. And I suppose to reiterate some of the things that Adele mentioned in the previous presentation. Before I start, I also want to really acknowledge the work of Joan Stevenson, who was really my right-hand woman during the conceptualization, the thinking through the MOOC design. So a lot of this work is also her work as well. So just to reiterate very quickly, the key aims of the Stairs project and why the MOOC was a very successful way of disseminating and way of presenting the findings. And it was really about learning about good practices from educational, educational inclusion projects that were based really around good policy and good practice. And we really looked at both of those two key issues. And the other thing that we were also interested in was looking at good practices that had elements of multi-agency collaboration. So they had to be policy and practice, multi-agency working. And also we were interested in looking at projects that were funded by the state, funded at a regional level, and also funded at local levels, and to look at how they operate and how people work together to promote inclusive environments, inclusive experiences for children. Also as well, on top of that, to explore the potential and to document the process of adapting these projects and upscaling them to a European level. So, okay, we were looking at Portuguese, Irish good practices, but how can we take elements of those or take the entire project and upscale it or transfer it to another country? So that was one other aspect of it. And then the other aspect was the mindset change. So what type of mindset, attitudinal change policymakers, educators have to go through in that adaptation upscaling process. And that's why the Mooc recording the development of this project is actually a very good way of disseminating and talking about the project findings. Now, the project itself is very, I would say, broad and deep. We selected the learner countries, or the countries involved in the project, had a wide range of interests from early years right through to vocational education, special ed, and also the transitions from, you know, primary to post-primary, and also early school leavers. So our task was quite broad. We also, on top of that, had to decide ourselves, well, in selecting good practices for this project, what is actually a good practice? So we spent a lot of time in the partnership brainstorming key indicators. So we came up with something in the region of around 40 questions that were collapsed down to 6 dimensions. So policy, funding, school and institutional involvement, partnership, you know, a history of partners are working together, the collaborative ethos of the initiative or project, and then elements where teachers, educators, policymakers had opportunities to develop themselves, or professional development. So on the basis of that, then Portugal and Ireland went away and matched initiatives and projects that fitted partners' interests. And again, the multi-agency part was a key element of that. So what's the Stairs Mooc? So that's kind of the background to it. We collected, we had study visits, etc. We had a lot of discussions, we recorded videos and presentations for all of the different projects. And one of them you already hopefully will have listened to prior to this webinar. So the Stairs Mooc, a Mooc is a massive open online course. It's an important medium through which the Stairs project findings can be disseminated. And also, it's not just disseminated, we want them to be used. We want policymakers to go through the modules, etc., to use them for their own development. We want teacher educators to use them. We want school leaders, teachers to select elements. So we designed the Mooc around 6 key modules and an introduction. And there's associated lessons based on key aspects of each of the research projects based around policy, etc. And Moocs as a dissemination format or facilitator is really becoming a very integral part of many instructional educational courses, continuing professional development, and particularly in the area of teacher education. Most countries are developing a continuum of teacher education, from initial teacher education right through to continued professional development. And so there's a growing emphasis on specialized or tailored courses that teachers can take. And the Stairs Mooc really fits into that. So as a CPD element where a research or an education center can take modules and you know, ask their teachers to go through the modules. And again, the other thing that we're very mindful of is that in doing the Stairs Mooc, we wanted to, I suppose, embrace that whole development as well in Europe around micro-credentialing, that if somebody is doing a course, is participating in a project, that they get some credit for it. And the other element of a Mooc is that there's elements of distance learning, you know, over a variety of timescales, materials, supports, assessments, and certification as well. So they're kind of the key things that underpin the design of it. So when we carried out the study visits, collected all the data, etc. Then we sat down and, okay, how do we design this Mooc? So Joan and myself worked on the initial concept paper. So this is what should go into it, what's our overall look, what we want from it. And we also as well developed a technical paper which looked more at the techniques or the technical aspects of Moocs. And I want to take you through both of those. So from the initial concept paper and the technical paper, I suppose it became obvious to us that there were 4 key things that we wanted achieved in the Mooc. One was to make it engaging for the user, to share the knowledge that we had as well from the project. to make it informative, interactive, and challenging. So remember at the beginning, I said that one of the key things is about adapting. It's not just about presenting good practices. We also want countries, agencies, policymakers to take on board some of the lessons and to adapt them, and that process of adaptation. So to challenge participants to think differently or reconsider their position, and then also to consider the process of adapting policy and also the change management level as well that occurs at that point. And then from that, we sat down and developed the Mooc structure, and then we developed as well the 7 modules that encompass the Mooc. So for the last couple of months, that's what we've been looking at. Now, in terms of the Mooc concept, one of the first things that we talked about, well, what sort of a Mooc do we want? And we basically had kind of 2 considerations in mind. One was, yes, how it's organized, and also how to keep learners engaged, because one of the key things around Moocs that Joan and myself, certainly when we were reading about them, was about the attrition is very high in Moocs. So we were very conscious of that in the original design. And we came up with three options. Option 1 was a super Mooc where you had everything all on one platform. Option 2 was a series of independent Moocs. So for instance, we were, going back to the original design of our interests, there was special education, there was inclusion, there was policy. They were kind of specific interests, and we explored, well, could you actually do separate Moocs for all of those? And then option 3 was kind of a broad sweeping introductory Mooc with independent mini Moocs off that. And I suppose the partnership itself decided that actually to honor all of the data we collected, and also the interweaving or the interwoven aspect of a lot of different concepts. So for instance, policy is threaded right through all of the lessons. And also practice comes through in all of the modules, that it was not possible to really develop independent Moocs. So we decided on one big Mooc, and we've put it on, uploaded it onto Canvas. Canvas is quite a regular platform for Mooc modules. And the other thing as well we're very keen on is that for people who are engaging in the Mooc, that they get credit. So we are building in for each module has about 6-7 lessons, that after the end of each lesson, after doing an assessment, that they get a badge of certification. But then also there is an assessment at the end of each module where they gain ECTS, or that they can be transferable. So this whole thing of micro-credentialing. And we've organized all of the modules around 6 ECTSs, which is around 150 hours of work. Then the other, so that's one aspect, the concept of it. Then the other aspect was around, well, what kind of Mooc? Is it an interactive Mooc where there's a teacher online all of the time guiding the learners through, or is it more of an asynchronous type of Mooc? And there are 2 broad, a long continuum of Mooc designs or typologies. The C Mooc, which is an interactive connectivist Mooc where learners are working together. They select the material. There's a diversity of learning platforms as well. So learners could be on Facebook, could be working with wikis, blogs, etc. And then to more standard sort of traditional format, which is, there's lessons already designed, and then the learner engages with those. Also, the XMOOC allows more independent learning. And I suppose we were very conscious that after we've left the project, or once the project is finished, there won't be a teacher there to facilitate individual people. But we were conscious that we wanted to make something interactive. So we came up with kind of a hybrid model, which is we're designing an XMOOC, but with the option that it can be taken by an institution, by an education center, and to run with a group of teachers. So there's lots of flexibility within that. And just also to say that there's lots of other different types of MOOCs as well. And there's synchronous MOOCs that, start at a specific time, the end of a specific time, asynchronous that could go, they start, and then there's a learner is allowed as long as possible to submit things. Transfer MOOCs, we've become very familiar with those since COVID, where basically a face-to-face module or course is put onto a MOOC, and it resembles more traditional format. So we decided on the XMOOC, but with flexibility, and we kept, I suppose, in mind the diversity of the specific learner as well. And we'll talk a little bit about who the target learners were, because the project is so broad. The participant pool is also quite broad. So our aim is to take that learner on a journey, and they can design their specific learning. So if they're more interested in policy, they take the policy module first. And so it all depends on their interests, where they're coming from. So there's lots of inbuilt flexibility in selecting the modules, the sequence, and also even in relation to the lesson. So there's lots of options within the lessons to take different parts. So there is, obligatory things, there's things that they can take, further reading, etc. And we took that idea of the Ferris wheel, and this was really Joan's idea initially, that it's a moving part with policy in the middle of it. And I suppose as I've developed or worked through the MOOC and also this project over the last couple of years, policy is so central, that all of the good practices that we looked at, the key thing that defines all of them is that there was faith in the policy. The policies really were at the foundation, and they drove the funding, they drove the collaboration, they drove the interest and the enthusiasm, and they kept that child at the center of all of that. And that's why we really wanted that to be very well represented in the MOOC design. So who are the target learners? As I said, it's very broad. So we're targeting, I suppose, change agents. And Anna will talk a little bit about the change management toolkit that's part of this, part of the outputs. So policymakers, teacher educators, school leaders and teachers from primary to further education to vocational education and training, because some of our good practice initiatives are very much based around that informal. So school leavers that have left school early that are re-entering. Teachers undertaking CPD or further education. This notion of building your confidence, etc. Because that was another thing that I suppose we learned from the project, was that teachers learning this, developing communities of practice. You see it in the Portuguese study visits, very much where teachers came together, worked through issues, were interested in children, interested in developing their own skills. And then also as well, I think there are some modules that we could target at initial teacher education students. These are our future change agents. So then it is our notion. So we had our 7 modules, and even though it's called an introductory module, there's actually quite a lot in this. This is where we're really emphasizing about the good practice grid, how it came about, and then the collapsing into the 6 key areas: policy, policymakers, and funding. So okay, there's policy and policy change at the center. So this is the policies that's driving the particular elements, but it's also, we needed a specific module just around the development of policy itself at European Commission level, United Nations, UNESCO, etc., UNICEF. And then schools and educational practitioners, making schools inclusive environments, special education and schools transitions, vocational education, training and early school leaving. Now, I would have to say that they were really driven by partner interests. So when we met initially way back in 2019, these were the areas that the sharing countries and the learning countries were interested in. And then there are 2 key outputs from the project: the multi-agency collaboration, which is at the foundation of the good practice projects, and then the adaptation and the change management. So they really then deserved 2 modules on their own because of just the huge amount of outputs that came from the project, that we could have a whole Mooc on each of those particular areas. So the stairs wheel then is not linear. I won't go too much into this. It can be facilitated by an instructor, but we have met it at the moment. It's an asynchronous type of project. And as I said, each spoke and bucket represents stairs work. Then once we had that figured out, we went and designed the modules, the specific modules. We developed a Mooc structure, a module outcomes working document that outlined the key objectives. Then we went down into the individual modules where we identified a coordinator, ECTS, an introduction, the syllabus and lessons, the learning outcomes, the study resources, and also the types of assessment. In terms of the material that we gathered, we've looked at Stairs outputs. The study visits were central, so we really want to disseminate the interesting videos that we collected and recorded for each module and lesson. We have ourselves, like I was involved in 2 of them. I recorded videos of myself explaining the module. So we have lesson videos going with all of the lessons. For each of the good practice initiatives and projects, there's lots of published material. So there's lots of reports, etc., that accompany a lot of the lessons. Other Erasmus projects, European Commission, UNICEF, UNESCO material and websites were very useful. And also one key kind of website was the European Agency for Social and or Special Inclusive Education. That was kind of key as well. And then published academic journal articles as well. In terms, I just want to go through just very quickly two of the modules. So this is the Special Education Inclusion and School Transitions module. So the first lesson, we really looked at the concept of inclusion and inclusive education, what it is, and I suppose very much that notion of a rights-based education, and some of the things about equality as well that you mentioned, in the Mentimeter. I was interested in that feedback. So a lot of that is in lesson 1. Then lesson 2, we traced the policy paths. So we started the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, right through to the Cali, Salamanca Agreement, the Cali confirmation, etc. So all of that is in that lesson 2. Then lesson 3, what we look at is the inclusive practice in Portugal. Portugal and Ireland were the 2 sharing countries, but I do have to emphasize what we're highlighted as kind of the good practice countries. One of the things I've learned along this journey is that we are on a journey. And that I suppose we were very keen not to compare countries, just to learn. We're all on different parts of the journey, different places. While Portugal and Ireland may be a bit further on in inclusive education, other countries are much further on in other aspects. Then we also looked at inclusive practices across Europe. So I selected all of the other sharing countries, the learning countries, and the participant has the option of selecting one of the countries to focus on. Then inclusion and the voice of the child. One of the key developments around inclusive education in Europe is the inclusion of children with special education and the right to their voice. So that's very much embedded in that lesson. And then the Bridge Back to School is an inclusive education module during COVID-19, which is based in Ireland. A very good example of how a school at the base level can, an organization can work with schools and teachers to develop a really interesting inclusive educational model at the ground level. An example of schools, we looked at the schools and education practitioners. This is very much, again, started off with inclusive education, the policy. This is where I suppose the really emphasize that policy is really embedded very strongly in all of the modules. So again, lesson 1 is about the policy around inclusive education, draw a lot on the presentations from Portugal and Ireland. And then we look at macro and micro. So the macro level, state level intervention around schools, and then the micro level, so the bottom down and the top up. So lesson 4 looks at homeschool community partnerships that are funded by the state, but are very much driven at the bottom level. Then lesson 5 is a regional response to a literacy initiative in disadvantaged area of Limerick that's very much based around state, school, community organisation. And then the last lesson 6 is another example of schools and a higher education, teacher education college working together. It happens to be my college. It's called Targeting Educational Disadvantage. And that was the last one. So finally, so that's to give you a broad kind of brushstrokes. And I know Adele went through these. So this is how the Mooc structure looks like. This is the introduction. Then you go into the different lessons and you click on those. We've a good bit of tidying up to do with them, but I just want to give you a flavour of them. And Anna, who's up next, Anna's pictures here. So this is I suppose, indicative of kind of the format. You know, you go into the module. This is the introduction. You click on the presentation. You hear Anna talking about the module, the learning outcomes, etc. And then you're off on your little journey yourself. I suppose some key lessons, while we haven't implemented it yet, some of the key lessons, I guess, for other people doing projects that are taking on Moocs, that the preparation, don't underestimate the preparation that has to go into the design element. It is absolutely fundamental. And I think I certainly didn't really appreciate it at the time, and we started talking about the Mooc a year ago, and in my mind I was thinking, why are we talking about this so early? But we actually started a bit too late, because you really need to develop the concept paper. There's an awful lot of research around the technical aspects of Moocs that are not easy, and certainly I didn't know much about Moocs before I started this journey. And between Joan and ourselves, we kind of figured it out. So I suppose the key lessons from this aspect, it's a absolutely huge potential in what we've done, and hopefully it will gain traction. But you know, it's very clear, the background work is important, the aims and objectives, who your target participants are, who the learners are, the type of Mooc you want, whether it's a C Mooc or an X Mooc, whether it's a super Mooc or a mini Mooc, the approximate number of modules, the design, whether you're going to have recording. I suppose for me, looking at Moocs where there are recordings where a teacher is talking and leading you through the module, they seem to be the more interesting and the ones that keep you engaged. I think ECTSs and certification is absolutely critical. So it's the one thing that I think will keep learners engaged. And then the assessment, for us, we have a lot of self-assessment type of activities built in, but obviously if a teacher is taking the module on board, they can design their own assessments. And the other aspect of things that was kind of an offshoot from this we hadn't anticipated is that we've now developed a book of modules based on this that also can be used in further work as well. So there, I just want to give you a flavour of the Mooc, kinds of outputs that are expected, and just the huge potential as well that's in it, and the types of material that is contained in each of the individual lessons. So it probably will go live, I suppose, sometime around June, July. So I'd really invite you to keep an eye on it and to use it if you can. So thanks. Back to Adele. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Angie. That was really interesting, and also your presentation was really excellent, and you highlighted the main steps. And it's really amazing to be part of this work and to see how the concept evolves while we are working on it. And it's really a very, very nice cooperation of partners. And thank you very much.
Okay.
Now I would like to give the floor to Ana Paula Silva from Portugal, and she will tell us about change management, but it is even more than that. Am I right?
Yeah, just a minute, because I thought that I had my PowerPoint prepared, but now I have it. sorry for that. Okay, now it is. So, good afternoon, everybody. As Adele said, my name is Ana Paula Silva, and I'm from Lusófona University in Lisbon, Portugal. The title of this presentation, Change Management, Besides Tools, It Demands Caring for People, intends to address the attention for the fact that change management is mainly responding to the needs of people implementing it. Just a few words about my institution. Lusófona University is the youngest and the largest non-state university in Portugal, comprising humanities, science, and technologies faculties. Faculty of Social Science, Education, and Administration, where I work in, provides undergraduate, postgraduate courses like master and PhDs in education. I also belong to the Interdisciplinary Research Center for Education and Development, which is a unit at the Lusófona University for the fields of education, heritage, human development, and museology. This center integrates in an interdisciplinary way research and advanced training. I started by working there in a project, European Policy Network on School Leadership in 2011, and went on with the Erasmus Plus project, Leadership Toolkit for Accelerating Achievement, next, Pedagogy and Practice, and currently I am collaborating with Stairs. Thus, areas of my academic and scientific interest in education are leadership, teacher well-being, teacher training, learning, project work methodology, educational innovation, and action research. This presentation will be developed following 7 points. What change can be, change as Stairs project envisaged in national adaptation plans, change in education for inclusion, change in education, change management process, change management differs from project management, and finally, I will present the tools from the Stairs Change Management Toolkit. Change can be divided into 2 different main categories according to Naumeyer 2006, 5, sorry, incremental and transformational. Incremental change is easier to implement successfully. It is often based on the current state to improve the existing way of doing people's work. It typically involves fewer changes and affects a small number of people. In fact, transformational change is more difficult to implement, typically having only a 30% success rate. Why is that? Things get more challenging when the change is transformational because it involves a fundamentally new way of doing things. This typically involves significant culture change and affects many people. Culture is people's values, beliefs, assumptions, and unwritten rules. These shape people's behaviors and mindset as well as their performance, which in any case are at stake in any change in education. So we can figure out from national adaptation plans that it is incremental change which is at stake in Stairs. Once the recommendations for adapting policies, best practices, should be those that best adapt to the national context without changes, as they can be adopted directly or modified to better suit them. Inclusion is a right for all children and youngsters, not only in education, in schools, but in all domains of the society. It's not a question of an updated fashion in education. In the European context, social inclusion has been in the heart of the European Union cooperation in the educational field. Since the Lisbon Strategy in 2000, when education was first recognized as an important source for developing a socially inclusive European Union, various documents and initiatives have been adopted at the European level, aiming to realize this important and ambitious goal. The most recent being the Council conclusions on establishing a European education area by 2025 and stressing the value of good quality, inclusive education from childhood onwards, in laying the groundwork for social cohesion, social mobility, and an equitable society. In education, inclusion and equity mean a big challenge at all levels and layers of the national systems. When facing inclusion, it means to have as main goal for a whole educational system the fulfillment of needs, diversity of all students, promoting learning and participating, as Adele already mentioned. This is a complex challenge that needs a systemic approach to build more inclusive and participative schools in a more comprehensive and democratic environment. And for this, in the Change Management Toolkit, you have Tool 1 that I will talk more about later on. Vianney and Pont in 2017 draw out our attention to the need for a policy to be intelligently designed, which they call smart policy design. This is a policy that is well justified, offer a logical and feasible solution to the policy problem, will determine to a great extent whether it can be implemented and how. And in the Change Management Toolkit, you'll find Tool 4 with the steps to come to this. This dimension is complemented, this smart policy design should be complemented by two other dimensions: stakeholders engagement and conducive context, whose importance has already been considered by Stairs members in designing and producing national adaptation plans. As change takes place inside social systems, the act of communication must be addressed. And you have in the Change Management Toolkit, Tool 2, communication plan to orient you in planning this change. A new idea circulates throughout a social system by people talking to people. And you have also another tool, Tool 3, Empathy Map, to address this issue. On the other hand, change is also everyone making an adoption decision. Potential adopters work their way through a decision-making process. In the end, they either adopt a new idea or continue with their traditional practice. Thus, the change process must obey to some principles. The first is that change is learning. Hence, Stairs started with learning activities and ended with the Mooc, as Angela presented before. But as learning takes time, the second principle is that change is a process, not an event. Third, the school is the primary organizational unity for change. Fourth, organizations adopt change. Individuals implement change. Fifth, focus is needed, as fostering inclusion requires multiple resources and multiple amount of attention and energy with multiple actions. To use formative and summative evaluation of the efforts to assure successful implementation is also very necessary. These elements require consistent, enduring, and uninterrupted attention to the goals and intended results of each change initiative. Along the way, it is very important to keep the focus on the primary goal to be achieved. Change management is often the key component in driving the success of any venture. There are many complexities involved in executing a change initiative. Both change management and project management components are required. Sometimes change management and project management are mistaken as one and the same, but they are two complementary yet different disciplines. Both use formal process, tools, and techniques to plan for the change, manage the change, and sustain the change. While change management focuses on ensuring the support of the people, project management focuses on the work tasks to be executed. Coupled together, proactive change management and project management will lead to the actualization of the benefits of the change initiative. And as you see in this diagram, you have different actions regarding project management and regarding change management. Regarding project management, the actions should be design, develop, and deliver the project and achieve the results. But in what concerns change management, the actions are engage people that are going to implement the change, for them to adopt the actions that should bring them to the results, and to use the new learning that they have acquired for that. Another thing that I would like to draw your attention to is in this diagram, as you can see, the phases of the process as regarding project management and change management seems like to be the same: a current state, a transition state, and a future state. But on what regards change management, the transition state and the future state blurred one another, and I believe that this image, it's an image that means the idea that the change management have to face advances and setbacks. Now, I'm going to present you the tools of the Change Management Toolkit. This is a set of tools that are considered useful to carry out the change foreseen in the national adaptation plans. These tools were selected considering who the recommendations in the national adaptation plans are addressed to, namely government, municipalities, at the policy level, school leaders, teachers, and other practitioners, and so on. Some of the tools are meant to be used by specific change agents, and others are meant to be used by everyone, as shown in the diagram. So, as you can see, the first tool is named Soft System Methodology, and is a tool to make people involved in change to gain awareness that any change, even incremental change, happens within educational system. So people have to be aware that the change will be influenced by many factors at many levels of the system, and the change will be achieved considering all these elements and different influences. So the first tool is here in the Change Management Toolkit to allow people gain awareness about this point. The second tool, Communication Plan, is for everyone that is responsible to present change to educational community. It's very important to be clear about the change, but is also very important to get people involved and valuing the change since the beginning. So this tool is presented to allow responsibles for the change to draw a communication plan, taking in consideration all these aspects. The third tool, Empathy Map, is a tool, as the name implies, to build empathy among people that are responsible for implementing a change. I borrow Empathy Map for design thinking, but it's really, from my point of view, a very important tool, because it's a tool for taking stock of people involved in change, what they think, what they feel, what they fear about the change they are that are challenging them. The fourth tool, Policy Feasibility, is a tool provided by VNA and PON in their literature review that they undertook in 2017, and is very useful for analyzing, evaluating, and implementing educational policy, any educational policy. And within the Change Management Toolkit, this tool was selected having in mind policymakers, but everyone profit from using this tool. The fifth tool, Project Plan, even I said before that project management is different from change management. I decided that a tool recalling the steps of a strategic plan is very useful within this, this document, Change Management Toolkit. So you have here also this fifth tool. The sixth tool, Readiness for Change Assessment, from my point of view, is also a very important tool, because it's for change leaders and managers, it's very important to evaluate, to assess the readiness of people involved in change for carrying out this change. And this is a tool not just to be applied with practitioners, implementers of change, but also with stakeholders. As Adele, as Angela before remarked, how important stakeholders is in carrying out change, mainly change in education. So Readiness for Change Assessment is the sixth tool. The seventh tool, Behavior Change Plan, is also important tool. Of course, all of them are important, but Behavior Change Plan stands out because it's a simple tool. I imagine it's not an easier tool to fulfill, but it's for practitioners, it's very important. This tool should show to the implementers of the change what behaviors can be maintained, remain, and what behaviors have to change. Since the start, it's very important that practitioners, implementers of change, have a clear idea what they can keep doing the same and what they have to change, the different way they have to do things. And this is a tool for that. The eighth tool, Manage Personal Transitions, is a specific tool for change leaders and managers. Change leaders must realize that people at start resist to change. And this is normal because people, in what considers professional performance, people fear not to perform well. And they resist change because they don't know really, they feel insecure, they feel insecure and they don't really know what is going to happen if they change to do things the way they are used to. So the process, it's a process with different stages. And for the leaders of change, it's very important to be aware of it, to be aware of it. And it's important to have a tool they can consult and they can identify which the stage the team is or the individual, particular individual is. And this to also inform the leader of change what to do facing a certain stage. So it's a tool that really helps the leaders of change to manage individuals and the team. The ninth tool, Feedback Strategies, is also, of course, a very important tool because people that are undertaking new actions need really to know if they are performing as expected, if they are achieving results, if they are with, if they are facing difficulties, and it's very important for the leaders to know that, to give support, to inform about achievements, and actually also to celebrate the intermediate success achievements. So the 10th tool is success metrics. Nowadays, all leaders and managers, not just leaders and managers of change, but leaders and managers of organizations have to present results objectively, and metrics are useful for that. These two last tools are in a certain way related because obtaining information, applying success metrics, this information is also useful to give feedback to the implementers. So I hope to give you a good idea of change management and this output of Stairs project, Change Management Toolkit. I hope you have time, interest to go through it and to find them useful, to use it in your settings. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ana Paula. It was really interesting and really thoughtful. And last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Igor. And please tell us a few words about the European Adaptation Guidelines.
Hi, thank you, Adele, for the floor. Just let me know if you can see my screen, please.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Igor Peras and I work as a researcher in the field of psychology at the Educational Research Institute in Ljubljana. I've been part of the Stairs project for the last 2 years, and today I will present you the European Adaptation Guidelines. So the document summarizes and shares the key findings of the learning process in Stairs in ensuring more equitable education environments across the European Union. It is particularly addressed at experts and practitioners as well as policymakers in the field. Based on a strong methodological background, the EAGs can be a useful document to follow when planning a policy learning process in the broader field of ensuring inclusive education. The guidelines are structured around the key steps of the policy learning process, containing key findings and tips for its implementation. The idea is for the reader to follow the steps for his or own implementation, but to also have some creative freedom in creating their own policy learning process. Each step has either examples or case studies showing how particular countries in the Stairs project handle these steps. Each step also has supporting materials which can be used to support the implementation of a policy learning process that is based on the methodology of the Stairs project. So Adele already mentioned the Eag phases, and just briefly, I will explain each step just so you can have a bit of an overview of what's happening in each step. So the research and analyze phase begins with the learning countries identifying their learning needs or learning challenges. So they define questions to which they want to have answers in the policy learning process. In the second and third step, sharing partners from the so-called sharing countries have to be identified, and they have to select good practices that fit the national challenges of the learning countries, and these good practices are the basis of implementation. The second phase revolves around the idea of mutual learning. So both sharing and learning partners plan and prepare for the study visits, and as the culmination with the phase, the implementation of learning events, the so-called study visits, enable partners to gather vital information and key insights for implementing the good practices and start figuring out which good practices to adapt and how into the national context. Last but not least is the exploitation phase. So the most important phase of our process, of our methodology, in which national teams develop proposals and recommendations for the implementation of the lessons learned from the good practices in their own country context. So first, they summarize the main lessons learned from the sharing countries. And then in the next step, the so-called planning the adaptation of good practices is based around creating the national adaptation plans and discussing ideas presented in the plans with experts and policymakers in national discussion forums, which are aimed to connect those stakeholders that have not participated in the learning process, but can benefit from its implementation or dissemination of the conclusions. And then, while planning the adaptation process of good practices is an important task, as mentioned by Anna Paula, it's even more important to consider how to manage the mindset change that is important for the successful adaptation of the lessons learned from abroad in the national context. This is part of the step called planning and managing the process of change, which is heavily based on the change management toolkit. Finally, in the last step, the policy learning process ends with synthesizing the main lessons learned for the wider European area. For example, even though countries and Stairs have different starting points concerning social inclusion or fostering inclusive education, similar themes of the lessons learned from all participating countries can be distilled, and that enables us to generalize lessons learned, which can be used as policy considerations for the EU level, and that can benefit all member states. So for example, at the end of the European adaptation document, the Stairs Project Consortium has created the following policy considerations for the European Union in regard to tackling social inclusion in education. And these considerations can be found at the end of the European adaptation document. I know this presentation has been very brief, but I kindly ask you to take a look over the document, to share it amongst your network, and let me know if you have any questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Igor. And as I said, some of the documents will be finalized by the end of the project. So I think that in June, July, all documents will be available. And we hope that you can get back to our website. And now it is time for the coffee break. We will have a few minutes to make a bio break, and please come back in 15 minutes. You can stay in the call. You can just mute your microphone and stop your video, okay? Hello, everyone. Welcome back. In the second part of our webinar, we would like to invite you to our panel. And I would like to ask the moderator of the panel, Urška Stremfeld, to start. And I would like to hand over to you. And thank you very much in advance.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Urška Stremfeld. I'm Research Fellow at the Educational Research Institute in Slovenia, and our partner in this project. And I will moderate this panel. At the panel, we would like to reason, deepen, and compare the Stairs insights in the social inclusive education with the experience of other projects and stakeholders active in the field. And therefore, we divided this panel into two parts. In the first part, we invited our guests, leaders of the project selected at the same Erasmus Plus Call on Social Inclusion in 2018, and they will present their endeavors in the last 3 years in the field. And then after that, we would like to stimulate the discussion among all participants about your experience and future challenges in attaining social inclusive education in Europe. And then after, in case you will have any comment or question or just please raise your Zoom hand or write the comment in the chat. So therefore, I would like to first very warmly welcome Mr. Niko Numela from Finland and Mrs. Rini Kereta from Greece, and ask them to very briefly introduce their projects. And unfortunately, Mr. Iva Boneva from Bulgaria has apologized for her absence today. So Mr. Niko Numela, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, hello, and greetings from Helsinki, Finland. It's quite nice spring weather today, and summer is coming. So, and thank you for the invitation to this webinar. And let's try if I can still share my screen. So I guess it's working.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, really good. So, I was working as a project manager in a project called Expressa Self-Inclusive Grouping in Schools. And I'm working at Diaconia University of Applied Sciences. And here is the content of my presentation. First, I'm going to tell you about aim of the Expressa project and introduce the project team. And then I'm going to tell you what is expressing yourself in practice, and then some highlights from the impact. So the first aim was to promote social inclusion in school communities, and then improve the overall well-being of the students via self-expression, and also to prevent school dropouts and further to improve students' learning results later on. And I already mentioned that this was also in Erasmus Plus Key Action 3 funding. And we started in 2019, and we already ended the project in January 2021. And to be mentioned that this was a spin-off project from the participatory sporty theater project, which was a national project here in Finland. And the idea was evolved during the project. And then luckily we got this funding. based on the best practices from Finland. So the project team, we have a multidisciplinary project team. So let's start from Lithuania. Creative Future Ideas is a non-profit organization, and they have a background working with youth groups. And this Fachhochschule der Tagen, I don't speak German, so, but it's Diaconia University. And the DEFON is a training center, and the IDEF from Ireland is a non-profit organization as well. And the Finnish team that you can see there, so we didn't have school activities here in Finland, so we were only supporting these our project colleagues in Lithuania, Germany, Spain, and Ireland. So what we offered to schools was a 5-time set. The first one was grouping, and the second session was trust building, and the session number 3 was roles and interaction, and session number 4 was emotional skills. And then after the group spirit have enhanced or improved, there was a time for self-expression to show some skills or so on. And later on, I will share you the website, but this training model is available for all. So we reached over 800 students in 40 groups in Ireland, Germany, Lithuania, and Spain. And this picture is from Germany. This training, or the name of the game, is Tell Me About It. And I guess this is also from Germany, from a vocational school. And then the same vocational school, the name of the game is Cycle of Emotions. And this is from Lithuania. This citation is from my project colleague. We played games with students, teachers just watched. So one idea was that when we offered this 5-time set, the teachers were encouraged to take part of the group, but sometimes they were, just watching. So, and they really liked, and I heard that later on they have used these same kind of practices with other students. So this is from Ireland, from session number 5, self-expression class. And the man in the red jacket is a teacher. And so, and like the heading is great surprises and teacher involvement. So he was dancing with the boy, but yeah, this was really success, this class. And also our Lithuanian colleagues organized workshop with teachers, and they really liked, and like I mentioned, they have been using with other students these trainings and games. And these pictures are from workshops with deaf youth. So what about the impact? How do we know that this was impactful or impacting? So we did also some research, and we did this kind of self-evaluation survey, and the number was almost 700. So idea was to measure students' life before the group activities, time number 1, and then students' life after the group activities, time 2. And also I will share you the link. And we wrote an article to Journal of Education, Society and Behavioral Science. So more trust and cohesion for secondary school classes, experiences of the implementation of the Express Yourself program in 4 EU countries. And those Katrin and Heidrun are from Germany, from the University of Diaconia. And also we had a couple of students with us, Terhi and Mike, and they wrote their theses based on the research. So, so the research indicates that a positive impact on students' experience overall well-being, and for example, self-esteem. So, and what was in the background of these promising results? So it was the motivation and cooperation between the trainers and teachers, which was indirectly reflected in the atmosphere in the class. For example, the picture where the teacher was dancing. so it was like one example of a motivation of a teacher and our project workers. So they had a really good cooperation going on. So, and finally, my take-home message to you is cherish the group spirit. So it's, in my opinion, it's really, really crucial that the atmosphere in the class is relaxing and everyone is feeling and able to join the activities of the group. And I could share the article and a YouTube link or YouTube video which explains shortly the idea of the project. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will start with the questions later, but now we are continuing with the presentation of the project Inclusive Schools. Mrs. Careta, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes, excellent.
We don't see you. Maybe.
That's great. I'm trying to fix that. You can now see me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, hello everyone. Thank you for your great contributions. Thank you for inviting us, for inviting this project on the Stairs webinar. So the Inclusive Schools project, which I managed back in 2019 and 21, has now finished. It's been a year, but we're continuing with the iteration of it, Inclusive Schools 2. I'm going to share my screen to give you a bit of an insight about what the project was for. Let me see. Just a moment. Yes. Can you see my screen? Because I cannot see you now.
Yes, it's fine.
Yes, it's fine. Great. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So the Inclusive Schools project, as I said, it was comprised of 7 partner organizations, including the British Council. It was run by our British Council office in Greece. And the main concept was how to embed inclusive education principles in schools management in Europe. We took as a concept inclusive education in a broad perspective about how to maximize acceptance and participation, how the school attempts to respond to pupils as individuals, and how to contribute to their personal and academic development, and inclusive education as a concept of questing for equity, social justice, participation, and citizenship, active citizenship, striving for the well-being of all learners based on a positive view of difference. This is the concept around which we worked on for inclusive education in inclusive schools. And a main motto perception is that inclusion is not a destination at which we arrive, but an ongoing road. It is a road upon which we travel. So we launched an education pack comprising of methodology and activities suggested for 9 to 11 and 12 to 15-year-old students. That was translated in 10 languages, and an activities booklet suggested for organizing an inclusion week in schools as an opportunity to actually celebrate diversity and embrace the differences of students. So the education pack was based on very important documents and educational content, right? The Convention of the Rights of the Child, the Salamanca Statement, SDGs, quality education, and the European Social Charter. It is, as I said, a tool for schools and for school management on how to work with their students throughout the school year. And it also contains classroom activities. So the phases in the methodology that we suggest in the inclusive schools was initiation by diving into a needs assessment for the school. What are the main issues? What are the main barriers? And what is our student profiles and student population? And then implementation, making it happen by putting forth this needs assessment, by putting forth an action plan towards we work through the year while monitoring and evaluating the results in the end of the year. So we reached out to 80 associated organizations and schools around Europe. The countries which comprised the consortium were Spain, the UK, Greece, Poland, and Belgium, but we managed to reach out to many more countries than that, and that's why we translated the education pack in more languages. Our outputs and outreach. So we managed to reach out to 500 teachers, school advisors, and students trainings. We had direct workshops, ongoing workshops in 61 schools across Europe. Excuse the mistake on the presentation, it's not 55, it's 500. And we managed to actually reach out to 2,000 teachers, school heads, school advisors, and trainers through the training we offered as part of the project, reaching out to 2,000 students directly in the schools we worked in, and 15,000 students indirectly through the teachers that we trained on the methodology. The project participated in 20 other projects and conferences and events, reaching out to 500 policymakers and education stakeholders, also taking into account the final policy event, which took place back in November 2020, which had a very wide interest and engaged 190 participants from across the globe. Actually, it wasn't only European stakeholders, which is evident of how important inclusive education is and how much teachers and school leaders need the tools and the methodology to work for inclusive education. The policy recommendations that we ended up with, as the project was part of the Key Action 3 of the Erasmus Plus. I will only refer to like the highlights, which is we need policy development, of course, and adequate funding to support the resources needed to implement efficient policies on inclusive education. Further training of teachers and educators, of future teachers as well, embed the common conceptual framework of inclusive education in the training of future educators was an important outcome. Important on the cooperation and exchange of good practices, transsectoral and cross-regional, as well as a long-term vision in the national government strategies and processes related to inclusive education. Not undermining, of course, the importance of short-term projects that they can give the networking opportunities and create and the tools and the resources, but we need to establish a long-term solid strategies on inclusive education on a national level. And taking this in mind, we applied for the second iteration of the inclusive schools. And this will run, is already running and will run until July 2023. We are 6 partners in this, coming from Italy, the UK, Spain, the Netherlands, and Belgium. Again, the main question, the main concept is how to embed inclusive education principles. But now this time we focus on teacher training. This is teacher training, face-to-face courses, specifically for school leaders, face-to-face courses for serving teachers, and a massive open online course for teachers and newly qualified teachers. The expected results is a pool of trainers, the high quality courses, school leaders and teachers trained in such methodology. And the aspiration is to engage 10,000 learners, also through role models of all these teachers, school leaders, and in-service teachers that will come out from the project. I hope I didn't take much of your time. These are the links to our websites, both the websites where you can find resources. That's it from me.
Thank you, Irini, for your presentation. So is there any question, comment of the public to this point, either to the first, either to the second presentation, or on the Stairs project? Do we have any raised hand? I don't see any for now. So maybe I will raise one question for Nico, Irini, and Adele. As we heard today, social inclusion is a very broad topic, and as well the activities with which we can address it. And we have gotten acquainted with 3 very interesting projects in the field today. So maybe where do you see their main common points?
Excuse me, first a short comment. Irini, could you please unshare your screen?
Oh, thank you.
Would be nice to see the faces.
Thank you for pointing this, Adele. I didn't realize. Thanks. I just did. I hope it shows, right?
Now it's okay. So hello everyone again. I hope that you were with us in the beginning. Maybe Irini, you came later, I'm not sure, but I have presented already the Stairs project, so I'm not going to present it again. But as far as I see, one common point is for me that we all see inclusion as a process or as a journey that we are included. And this is for me maybe the first thought that comes in my mind.
Absolutely. I second that. I read about the Stairs project, of course, and I've seen the presentation by Nico. The idea is that we also see inclusive education as a road in which we are driving on. It's both a destination and the road. And at the same time that we have this perspective, this concept of inclusive education, not exclusive, but embracing all potential diversities of students, addressing to student particularities, specificities, and inclusive education is indeed for for the personal and academic development of all students, accessing same opportunities within the classroom, and making a school a very dynamic and embracing environment community.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I absolutely agree.
Nico, maybe any thought from your side at this point?
And you mean like main findings from the project or ideas? So yeah, the idea behind the project was this was like an intervention to a class. And so like 5 times is not that much, you know, being with the student group. But the idea was that the impact could last like for many years if the, let's say they're like 7th graders, for example, in Finland, and they make friends, so they could be like friends like several years after the project. And like I mentioned in my take-home message, it's really critical that when a new school group starts, so that every students get know each other. So that was my like main finding or idea what is important, at least in our project.
Yes, and when you're saying this, the second thing comes to my mind, that a common point can be also that the well-being of students was very important. So that all good practices that we have collected and studied, I think included the core idea that students must feel really that they belong and they feel good.
Okay, thank you all. So do we have any participant in the public which have been implementing other kinds of projects, for example, Horizon 2020, other EU-funded or national project in the field? And do you see any common points with the project presented and that with you would like to share it with us?
Yes, if I can start, I will. We have Inclusion for Schools project. It's a Horizon 2020 project for 4 years, started in 2020, in November the 1st. And this project is a school and community partnership for reversing inequalities and exclusion through transformative practices and segregated schools. So we are striving for inclusion and against exclusion on the social level and through school community partnership. So we work for inclusive education, and of course we can see some common points. And if you don't mind, I will share the link to our website as well. We will contact you if there will be some further links like events or conferences. We will have the first conference in November in Budapest on the 7th and 8th of November. So if you like, we really welcome you.
Thank you. I think you can post it in the chat. Thank you.
Would any other participant like to share your experiences about your project? Not for now. So maybe again, a question for Nico, Irini, and Adele. What have been the main challenges, in addition to the COVID situation in which our projects were implemented, that you have faced in your project and when striving towards greater social inclusion in education? The main challenges, maybe more content ones.
So if I may start. So we noticed that there were like 3 kind of teachers. So one group was like really reluctant for cooperation, and they were like forced to it. And you can imagine that the cooperation is not working in that scenario. And the second group was like, okay, whatever, so you can come. The third one was the teachers who were like really into this. And so our challenges were in the beginning, like selling the project, and so they can see the benefits of what we are doing. So, but yeah, cooperation and how to get started, and actually find a time slot from a class.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Adele, Irene?
Sure. Adele, shall I go on?
Yes, please, Irene.
Great. So I am sorry, Urska, I missed your question, but from Nico's answer, I realized you asked about the challenges and the barriers.
Yes, correct.
To implementing the project, right? So for us, obviously, apart from the COVID period, which brought so many challenges in all the educational settings all over Europe and the world. For us, I think it's also the different concepts of, I mean, not only concepts, but also the level of inclusive education, concept-wise and implementation-wise in the different countries. I mean, in the UK, we have policies in schools so much more progressed, let's say, than in Greece, or and tailoring the project in each of these contexts was a challenge, not a challenge that we couldn't overcome. It was also a very best practice of sharing and exchanging context between the countries. For us, I think it's as Nico mentioned, is the reluctance, but at the same time, there is a lot of reluctance on the part of school leaders and teachers because of their lack of background. And so they don't know really, they need a lot of guidance on how to implement such kind of projects or suggested methodology for their schools. And then it was all the challenges that they faced that very few could remain engaged throughout, really engaged, I mean, authentically engaged throughout the project, and saw it as a long-term strategy to adapt in their school community. I think that the lack of really training on the part of teachers and school leaders on such issues, but there also the lack of resources. I mean, the time, the equipment, sometimes everything can affect where barriers to the project. Yes, I wouldn't state something else. What I see though is that there is a need of support. There is a need for support to teachers and school leaders, something that they stated, and it was actually the scratch point that made us propose the second project, which is focused on teacher training and school leaders training.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Adele, any thoughts on your side?
Yes. I think that all three phases of our project had some challenges. As for the first part, the research, I think it was quite challenging for the learning countries, so Hungary, Croatia, Czech Republic, and Slovenia, to formulate the learning needs, because we really had to look at the situation of inclusive education, for example, in case of Hungary, and we had to find some really data and evidence, and then we tried to formulate the learning needs. And then in the second phase, when we had the study visits, I think it was quite a challenge to change a face-to-face study visit to an online study visit, and we really had to think about how this could be, how this could work. But I think this turned out very well in the end. And as for the third part, for the support of the adaptation phase, I think the challenge was that we have to be aware that it is not easy to take a good example, a good practice from one country and to transfer it to another country's context. So we really have to think about the, the adaptation procedure, and we really have to find the points, the key factors that can be adapted, and really think about how this can fit the respective countries' national context. And I think it was quite a challenge to formulate the national adaptation plans.
A lot of challenges.
Yes.
So, in the warm-up activity, we see that we have participants from all around Europe, and that they are in different positions: policymakers, researchers, practitioners, heads of the schools, teachers, and so on. So I would like to really encourage the public at this point to become involved in the discussion and share any challenges that you faced in your work in striving towards greater social inclusion in education. Okay, it seems it's already afternoon and the public is a bit tired, so we will...
Urszka, could you possibly repeat the question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
I ask the public, encourage them to reflect their challenges in striving towards greater social inclusion, because we heard in warm-up activity that they are coming from different parts of Europe and are in different positions and so on. So I invited them to share their challenges, but if there is no, maybe we can continue with our discussion and hope they will join us later. We have heard for all three projects a lot of achievements, a lot of results, but however, I would like to ask you on which of the achievement you are the most proud of, and in which of the achievement you think that you made the greatest contribution towards the social inclusion in Europe.
Edel, will you and I maybe talk through this?
Yes, Angie.
Yeah, no, just in terms of challenges, I suppose from the point of view of the stairs, it has become very evident to me through doing the modules that you can have all of the legislation in place, you can have all the policy in place, but if the actual practice at the ground level is not I think being developed not necessarily in the same way that the actual realization of inclusive education is not going to happen. And one of the key things that certainly from our study visits that struck me was that the teachers' own professional skills and professional development are the things that I think make inclusive practice very difficult. So if the teachers are not willing to embrace inclusive practice, or if they see it as a stumbling block, no amount of policy or no amount of legislation is going to change that. So I think the stairs, the contribution I think the stairs project is making to this whole area is that we really did look at the three areas. We brought the policy, the legislation to a lesser degree, but also the practice together to demonstrate, even little things at a local level can make such a huge difference. So that was one of the key things, and also that policy must be met by funding. And if you look at all of the good practice projects in both Portugal and Ireland, and particularly, now Anna's going to kill me for pronunciation, but the T project, which is the territorial project, and the DESH project in Ireland, the reason why it's been so successful is because the state has invested quite heavily in that area of, and it has been, so that has that has allowed it, and also that even though the state has invested in it, it was very evident in both the territorial areas in Portugal and in Desh that the schools, the school leaders, the teachers had autonomy. So they had flexibility in implementing inclusive policies and practices that best catered their localized particular group of students. And I think that's, you know, for me, that's a kind of key learning, but certainly teachers CPD and the lesson for teacher education that include, and Irina mentioned this, that it has to be embedded within teacher education as well. So they're kind of the things. I suppose from the point of view of Covet, just want to mention that I think one of the things is certainly, I think Anna and myself would agree that the online Covet was a disadvantage, because I think we would have had very enriching and engaging face-to-face conversations if the study visits had been face-to-face. And I think the missed opportunity was really around the voice of the child. You know, Anna did capture that in that they interviewed the students, but at the same time being out in the schools, looking at the inclusive practices in place, I think that would have kind of enhanced our project. But listen, we did as good as well as we did. But I think for me, yeah, just the linking of the policy and the practice together and looking at those differences.
Thank you, Angela. Anna Paula, please.
Irene mentioned the question of teachers training, right? I've been working with teachers training for over 20 years now, and I've been participating in Stairs. And from my point of view, I think this is not a question of teachers training, or we have to rephrase or to reconceptualize teachers training, because from my point of view, is a question of teachers development, a personal development of the teacher. It's not a question it's not a cognitive question to deepen inclusive practices, is a question really of values and beliefs. And this is clear also within this project. If you watch the videos when the students talk, the mother that talks, the staff that talks in those videos, you realize how is not a cognitive question, is a question of belief, is a question of people that are really embracing values that in which they really believe in. So it's not in what I think it's daring for us that are working in the field is how can we change for a paradigm of teachers training to a paradigm of teachers development, focusing on personal development of people that work in education. Because from my point of view, this is the main issue. And I listened to all the projects, and it was very interesting for me that Nico is the project that Nico presented is a project about, how can I say, effective education, because it's about emotions. People have to be listened to, have to feel that they are understood, and to feel comfortable and confident talking about what they are, what they believe, what they feel, and so on. And this is why doing my work on the change management toolkit, I was so preoccupied in trying to highlight what is it about. It's of course that change is learning, but you have to learn by heart. You have to change something in your soul for going through the path of inclusion. And this is what I think that in the territories of priority intervention that Angela pointed out is what is happening in many of those territories in Portugal, because they started to be identified by the people on the ground, and the projects are designed by the professionals on the ground. And they, of course, the projects are approved by the ministry and provides more finance, more funds to be developed. But this building from bottom up, and for people that work, for instance, for 20 years in a school that provides educational service to a deprived community, I think makes the difference, really makes the difference. So it's what I want to stress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ana Paula. Any reactions, impressions about the Ana Paula's thoughts? Okay, if not, maybe, okay, Glyn, please. Glyn, you are muted.
Sometimes being muted is helpful. I just wanted to support the fact that this is set within a set of values that are written from the United Nations on downwards, but as Ana Paula and as Angela has also indicated, they have to be practiced from the bottom upwards, and values don't just begin in school. I just want everyone to remember that. Many values have already been absorbed by young people by the time they get to school. And that is slightly problematic. So I'm going to project that a very successful course might be, for the future, might be that a project on community education for inclusion, which would have a real focus on parents too, or those young people who are thinking of becoming parents, might be also valuable. Just a thought, just a passing thought, maybe a future project. But I would also add one further point, is that we all know effective change takes time. And as Nico will know, there's a relatively young man compared to me called Mikael Risku, who says every step along the journey is a step. Don't forget that. And I believe that the Stairs project have at least stepped on one tread as they go, and maybe more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glyn. Yes, Mika is almost a legend.
Any other impression? Okay. It seems that paradigmatic changes are very important, but the hardest to achieve. Maybe Ana Paula, you mentioned teacher training and the importance of teacher training and the change of the mindset of the teachers. My impression is that in the different projects, being on social inclusion, career orientation, or any topic in education, that we come to the initial teacher education, that it is the most crucial and where the things should start. But on the other side, in Slovenia, for example, when we address this question, there is autonomy of the university pointed out. That they develop their own content of education, initial teacher education, and so on. So maybe any thoughts on this, how to overcome this, and how to include these paradigmatic changes already in the initial education, despite the autonomy of the university. We know that they are part of the society, but anyhow.
I think the curricula have to change, as the curricula as the teaching and learning practices. I think that in those institutions, the so-called soft skills have to be addressed, and you have to imbalance the curricula in what regards scientific and technical contents with soft skills programs. Because what I feel and I realize that is necessary is really the personal development of the teacher. As one of the Portuguese scholars in this area used to say, a teacher, it's not possible to put a part in a teacher. You cannot separate the person from the professional. The professional is the person, and the person is the professional, including Igor Goodson. It's a Marxist, but he used to say that nowadays is so with facing such a quick change in everywhere, and such an amount of diversity within our classrooms, a teacher has really to be conscious that to be a teacher is included in the personal project of life of the teacher. I don't know if I explain me well, but that for me, that stress the person, the personal dimension of a teacher. So what to do within the institutions that trains the teachers? The curriculum has to be addressed. Of course, that teaching demands a lot of scientific and technical knowledge, but it has to be imbalanced with the so-called soft skills, and the development of the person has to be at stake. Otherwise, I think we won't give another step forward.
Thank you, Ana Paula.
I would like to know also people's thoughts about it, because I think that the scientific paradigm in teachers training, it's very old now. It's from the 60s and the 70s of the last century. It has its time there. But now I think that the world and the field demands different approach.
So, any thoughts? What I can say, and what I have recognized, that also the European Union already recognized the importance of teachers' well-being, personal, social, and emotional development in the new strategic framework for education and training until 2040, where the social and emotional competencies and well-being of teachers is pointed out as one of 5 strategic goals for the EU in the next decade. So we do hope that also at the policy and the highest policy EU level, there will be some support and projects in which we can address it. So it seems that this teacher social and emotional competencies are important and are one of the main challenges for ensuring also the social inclusive education in the future in the EU. But do we would like to point out any other challenges which are pressing now in the Europe until the 2040, for example, which we need to address in order to ensure the social inclusive education in Europe? We have already heard the gleam that we should start to implement community education and education of parents and so on. Any other ideas for further directions of the project and so on? Okay. If not now, I'm sure that the topic is very wide and very important, and we already recognized some common points now in our project, and we are certain that our ways and our steps in striving towards social inclusion in Europe will cross again in the future. But for now, I would like to thank our presenters, our guests, and the public. And I would like to finish the panel now and give back the word to the Adele to continue the webinar. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ushka. I really enjoyed this conversation, and congratulations to you. It's not easy to handle a panel online, but I think that we really heard very interesting thoughts and experiences, and I'm really glad that our guest speakers have accepted our invitation. It was so nice to see other projects and other project managers who were dealing with the same issue. And I hope that also the participants could find something to take away from this webinar for themselves. But I think that at this point I can close the webinar. So we will end very soon. And thank you very much for your very valuable contributions, dear speakers, panelists, and presenters, dear project partners. I really enjoyed this online event with you. As for the follow-up of the webinar, I promise you to put the presentations on the website. This will be the same website where you have registered. Claudia, please confirm that what I'm saying is okay. So you can get back and see the presentations, and you can find the slides, you can find the links and check everything. And as we said, this event has been recorded, and the recording will be also available quite soon. And we will send you a feedback form, so please fill it in and give us some feedback about this event, and really your feedback is valued, so please help us to improve our events. And I think that is nothing else left to me than thank you, and see you soon somewhere else.
Thank you, Adele.
Thank you.